Hi everyone, and welcome back to Deck Tech. This week we've got an archetype that I personally never thought I would touch, but you know, honestly, ladder rewards and cheap packs will get just about anybody interested. So, this week we're going to be taking a look at my spin on expanded Eternatus VMAX. And before we jump into the meat of the video, consider taking a second to like said video and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support is what keeps the PTCGO grind going here on the channel, and I appreciate you all for it. Now, I actually took inspiration for this deck from the Poison Eternatus build that was really popular in Standard for a little while. That build used Garbodor and Toxicroak to stack poison damage and help you secure key KOs when you didn't always have the massive god bench for that thick 270 damage dread end. And while that particular build is a little too slow for expanded because there's just too many evolving parts, we do have the timeless combo of Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank City Gym available to us, which basically does the same thing, but a lot faster and more efficiently. So the basic idea here is that the poison damage helps to fix the math against a lot of opponents, most notably ADP and other VMAXs. Just one Hypnotoxic Laser followed by a full power Dread End is enough to wipe ADP off the board, and in that particular matchup that usually means you've scuttled the opponent's plans completely because they didn't get the follow-up Ultimate Ray off. Laser plus Verbank means that a full power Dread End pushes your opponent to 300 damage at the close of your turn, and 330 at the end of theirs assuming they stay in and don't bump the stadium, which is gonna KO pretty much every relevant VMAX outside of Eternatus. Funny enough. So you essentially force your opponent to waste resources shuffling their board in order to remove the poison, or you give them the difficult decision of staying in to attack, possibly yes to chase the KO onto your Eternatus, but perhaps at the cost of their own attacker from the poison damage. But outside of that cool little interaction, there's a little bit more we can do thanks to this handy poison package. Darkrai-GX is a great way of padding our board and getting more energy into play, but it also has this cool GX attack called Dead End. If your opponent's active is afflicted with a special condition, then Dead End KOs it instantly. So for invincible Pokemon like Zamazenta or just really thick VMAXs, you have a nice one-time removal option. We have a small Weavile-GX package here just to help us shuffle our dark energy around, which, you know, is pretty standard for expanded dark decks. And I should mention that I really like this particular Sneasel because its corner attack can actually let you trap stuff in the active after you've poisoned or put them to sleep with Hypnotoxic Laser, and that is actually kind of relevant because people tend to play Floatstone over Switch in Expanded, which means they're going to try to manually retreat out of that poison, which they won't be able to because you've cornered them. So that's kind of cool and why I play this one in particular. Darkrai-EX is here for free retreat. Obviously, don't really need to say much else on that. Umbreon and Darkrai-GX is there mostly as a backup answer to Zamazenta, but it also has a neat GX attack that can item lock the opponent and potentially KO the enemy active, but chances are the game is going to be over before you have that much dark energy in play to get the full effect of it. And of course, this is an Eternatus deck, so 4 Crobat V is a must. Our supporter package is pretty thin because Crobat V tends to suffice for draw power, but Colress is nice because it can give you a fat hand when played alongside Eternatus and the big benches that you kinda need anyways. And obviously Pokemon Ranger is there just in case you don't get that critical KO on ADP. Oh, and AZ is nice as a guaranteed scoop up option, which you can use usually to erase a ton of damage from your active Eternatus, or if you're really in a bind, you can use it to pick up and get another use out of a Crobat V. The rest is pretty straightforward, honestly. I'd maybe like to have a little more room for things like Energy Denial, you know, Enhanced Hammer, things like that, but unfortunately Eternatus kind of demands that thicker Pokemon count, so, you know, the deck's gonna be pretty simple, all things considered. And yes, your physical energy count is a bit tight, but thanks to Weavile, Darkrai-GX, and Battle Compressor, you can generally get enough energy into play whenever you need it. Eternatus VMAX only needs 2 energies anyway to attack, so believe me when I say this is more than enough. I personally really like this build. I do think it hits a nice balance between aggro and defense, funny enough, but you know, at the end of the day anyways, Eternatus is broken AF, so I'm not sweating things too much, and as long as you're not doing anything too wonky, you're probably going to get good results with this card. And now that we've got a good idea of what it can do, let's go and ruin someone's day with a giant alien claw. Okay, so we're going to be taking my Poisonous Beatstick Eternatus VMAX into a matchup against what I would say is arguably the most adaptable deck out there in the expanded format. And my opponent is going to go first, which is a bit of a surprise. Generally speaking, since expanded is still more tag team dominated, typically you want to go second, especially since it's a Mew Mew deck. Usually they want to go second and get off some kind of wonky attacker setup, usually, you know, distort to lock you out of items, but they're actually just going to Prism Energy and pass, which is fine by me. I'm going to drop the Verbank, start thinning my hand out a little bit with the Ultra Ball so that I can hit a really fat dark asset with Crobat. And I'm going to do my best here to get a couple of Eternatus Vs established as well, just because, you know, the more the merrier. And specifically, you really want to have two just so that, you know, a boss and then a KO doesn't totally set my plans back. And, you know, for the rest of it, I'm just going to try and develop my bench a little bit more here and thin my deck out. I don't think I'm going to need the Pokemon Ranger anytime soon, and I can pitch the Darkrai as well, which is great. And, you know, I was able to check my prizes as well, see that nothing too critical is missing. And off of the Quick Ball there, I can grab the second Sneasel, which I desperately need because I'm pretty sure the one in the active is not long for this world. Now at this point, I decide I do need to put the Darkrai-GX on the bench because I have to Colress here. I don't really have a ton of resources right now, and drawing 5 cards is way better than drawing 4, especially since I have a follow-up Crobat for next turn, and the Battle Compressor doesn't hurt either because, again, I can just kind of thin my deck out here. I think, yeah, I'll just get rid of the N, and I won't take out too much energy because I might want to manually attach. And, you know, we only play the 9, so drawing into them can be a little tricky at times. And, you know, just a Hypnotoxic Laser there to finish off the turn will be great. You know, it didn't get the Sleep Flip, which is not, you know, the best thing in the world. But that Mewtwo's already down to 240 HP. If my opponent doesn't do anything about the severe poison, they'll be down to 210 at the end of their turn, which means that even without, you know, the full God bench under Infinity Zone, I can probably pretty easily take a KO on this Mew Mew. Now for my opponent's part, it looks like they are going to bounce the stadium and most likely grab a Float Stone as well, just to retreat this Mew Mew out of the active. That would be the thing to do because, you know, again, you don't want to make it easy prey for a Eternatus VMAX. And just generally speaking, getting rid of the poison is good because you want to preserve that tag team for as long as possible. And of course, you know, they get the Aurora energy as well, which is really nice. That'll get them to discard, put another GX into the discard pile there and give them access to a really good attack. And we'll see what they are going to grab here off of the tag call. So let's see. Okay, Tina Chomp and Gengar Q. So I suspect I have a Horror House GX in my future. The thing I'll have to hope for here is that the high number of Pokemon that I play end up filling my hand more than item cards, because the last thing I want is a Horror House into a boss on one of my Eternatuses, especially the one with the energy, because while more likely than not we will get a Weavile-GX there on the next turn, I want to preserve as much of that energy in play as possible, especially to give me Darkrai-GX as a route here into aggression. And yep, my opponent goes for the Horror House, they get the full effect of it, so both of our hands fill up. I'm forced to pass, which is not great, but I only have 2 trainer cards in hand, so I'm not too worried about what my opponent's going to do to me here. Now they'll go for the Cherish Ball, which is basically a Master Ball in Mew Mew decks. It's actually kind of busted when you think about it. No cost, like just free search for like the DAA GX, ADP, whatever. They'll grab the backup Mewtwo, which is smart. You don't really want to be going in on Tina Chomp, especially since you don't really run DDE in this deck. You rely more on the Rainbows, Prisms, and Auroras. And they'll pitch their hand there off of the research and then go for their own Battle Compressor, which means they're going to have access to a ton of different attacks there. And I know I looked at the discard pile earlier, I saw the damage change Mewtwo EX, which is always interesting, and something you have to very carefully play around. One thing I don't think that I saw at the time though was the ADP, and yeah, once I saw the ultimate ray there, I went, whoa, 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 whoa. Good thing they went for the horror house first, because altered creation would have been a little crazy. But there you go. It's actually kind of smart for them to do that too, because they can get their physical psychic energies out of the deck, which is always good. They don't know if I play Enhanced Hammer or not, so going for that is okay. It gives them access maybe to the Miraculous Duo and a lot of other interesting attacks. And now they basically guarantee that even if this Mew Mew goes down, they have the follow-up attacker, and they can still put in good work. It's certainly not an auto win for Eternatus by any means, especially because Mew Mew does have access to a lot of things like item lock. It can lock out basics from attacking. It can lock out evolutions from attacking, right? It's got a big pool of attackers to choose from, and they can just continue to say nope as much as they want. So now for my part, I don't have an Eternatus VMAX in hand. I have too many cards to reliably go for the Crobat, so the route that I'm going to go for here is actually using Darkrai-GX. And because I had that space, I could bench the Darkrai-EX, ensure my free retreat, and thanks to the Weavile that I've evolved up, I could move the Dark Energy in order to get a really nice dead end. But first I will AZ that Crobat just to see a few extra cards, and hey ho, there you go. There is the Eternatus VMAX. So now I have a little bit more breathing room, and I'll just pitch the spare Eternatus there. I don't really need that anymore. And I will get, if I'm smart, yeah, I will get the second Eternatus VMAX just to make sure that my bench doesn't get shrunk if there's, you know, if anything weird happens and the one gets KO'd, because that is always the worst. And then we can just pop this here to get the extra energy into play, and I can Shadow Connection that over to one of the Eternatuses to threaten the follow-up attack. So that's the most important thing. Obviously I'm going for the dead end here to take an instant KO on the Mew Mew, but I was a little bit worried about, you know, committing all my energy to that, because this Darkrai is not gonna, it's not really gonna survive the turn, I don't think. And I didn't want to be left with access just to the one energy off of its restoration and whatever I may have been able to draw into. But thankfully everything is good here. If my opponent takes it out, that's okay. I can pop it back on, and then, you know, with Shadow Connection, I have my follow-up attack, but I also have some physical energy in hand as well, which is really good. So as long as nothing funny happens here, I should be able to take the one-hit KO on either the Mew Mew or the Tinachomp. And from there, kind of just, well, win the game. Because, you know, when you're playing with 3 prizes, it's just 2 knockouts. But my opponent is really smart here. They have the Fighting Fury Belt, which is so busted on tag teams. So that's going to put them up to a cool 310 HP. They go for the Poltergeist, funny enough. I'm probably thinking my hand was stacked with item cards since I didn't play down a ton of Pokemon in an Eternatus deck. But I guess thankfully I managed to call their bluff here. And now that's bought me an additional turn to do some damage to this Mew Mew. So kind of looking at my stuff here, you know, I got the Crobat in hand, I have the Eternatus V. So what I'll do is now I'm going to go for that full stacked God bench. I can't unfortunately take a one-hit KO because of the Chaotic Swell in play. It's going to bounce the Verbank if I attempt to put that down. And, you know, sadly, even with Hypnotoxic Laser now, I cannot get the one-hit KO on the Mew Mew, which really sucks. But I'm going to bounce the Chaotic Swell anyways. I will put back some Weavile pieces as well, just because I have a feeling I might need that. Ditto with the Umbreon and Darkrai-GX. You know, while I don't have access to, I believe it's Pale Moon GX, you know, the Black Lance is still actually pretty useful, considering the fact that Mew Mew pretty much exclusively plays GXs and EXs. But, you know, for here, I'm just going to threaten the big damage, especially since I've seen the Guzma now off of my draw supporter there, which is great. So now even if I don't take out the Mew Mew, as long as my opponent doesn't disrupt my hand, I can just, you know, gust up the Tinachomp and take a KO on that. So I will go for the big attack into the Mew Mew, and this is pretty much going to force the damage change for my opponent. It's too risky now to go for either Jolteon or Glaceon EX's attack. They will throw down the Chaotic Swell just to deny me my laser combo, which is never great, and they'll go for the Bill's Analysis to get a follow-up Lysander in Trainer's Mail. So they are looking for some kind of boss route here to victory, but I'm not too sure what they think they can do at this point. I mean, they can damage change onto me and put my Eternatus into KO range, and then I guess from there you pick up like a Weavile or a Darkrai KO or Crobat, you know, for game. But I've got, you know, a fully charged Eternatus VMAX ready to go, and you know, hey, yep, you fully healed yourself, that's all good. But now, especially with access to the field lower, it's not going to matter. Right, I am gonna take that out, which is great, set them down to the 270 HP, and well, I have a full bench, so it's Dread End for game. Well, that went about as well as expected. Laser and Verbank are about as toxic as you get in terms of classic combos, and tossing the also broken Eternatus VMAX into the mix, well, you know, broken. But in all seriousness, this deck is, you know, it does what it's designed to do. You can apply so much pressure thanks to poison, and the ability to take an instant KO with Darkrai is beyond amazing. Add that on top of Eternatus VMAX's absurd damage output, and you have a deck that can win in as little as 2 knockouts. Now, I can't say this necessarily changes my mind on Eternatus being an absolutely ridiculous, kind of stupid card, but I can certainly see the appeal to somebody who just wants to go in and smash stuff and take, you know, a nice quick 6 prizes. And hey, you know, to be fair, the card does scream, use me as a beat stick. And at least in Expanded, you know, you do have a little room for creativity, so while it is still, mind you, a beat stick, it does have that lovely poisonous flair and flexibility to it. So take that for what it's worth. And that's going to do it for the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I will catch you all in the next one. And until then, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and as always, take it easy.